like my limit was there. Like I could see very clearly where my limit in terms of growth was gonna be if I continued to work on magazines. So I had this feeling about like being in the sinking ship, and I was like, I don't want to be in the sinking ship this early on in my career. I wanted to grow more, and I saw more area of opportunity in other careers or other areas. For example, technology. I knew I didn't knew anything about business, for example, and I felt that if I wanted to grow and also make more money, I had to expand.
Welcome back to Fashion Career Stories. My name is Lucas Silva Edward. I am a career strategist and executive coach. My role is to help you design a successful life and career in one of the most glamorous industries on the planet, but also one of the most competitive. With more than 10 years of experience in the fashion and luxury industry here in Paris, France, thanks to my large diversity of positions from retail, wholesale, product development, or fashion editor, I have acquired an insider view of what it takes to succeed in groups like LVMH, Kering, Chanel, but also fashion tech startups or small designer brands. For that reason, I interview each week fashion professionals at different stages of their career in order to decode the best practices, tactics, and strategies. My hope for you is that you will find in this conversation some inspiration and insight that will help you build your professional journey in the world of fashion and luxury. Before we start, I want to take a moment and give you a big thank you for supporting this podcast. A few months back, when I started recording season 1, I said to myself, just do few episodes, see how you feel. And now I'm launching season 2, thanks to the amazing support of all of the previous guests who were kind enough to play along. But also from all of you listening, each and every one of you who has reached out and given me some comments and feedback. Especially my students at the Institut Français de la Mode who have provided me with great support. It's meant a lot to me. This podcast is the one I wish I had a few years back when I started my career. And today, I'm doing it to help the next generation get on the right track as fast as possible. Which gives me the perfect transition to our guest today, Ikerne MESTRE. Ikerne is one of my former students, and she now works in Mexico as a freelance for a fashion tech company based in France. She's in charge of opening the Mexican market and promote the company. I wanted to kick off this season with Ikerne because she illustrates a concept that is key to my philosophy, the chess mindset, which is the capacity to plan several moves ahead in order to get to your objective. So I invited you to stay until the end because I break down this concept in the conclusion and give you 3 strategies that you can start implementing today. In this episode, you will also learn what does it mean to work as an editorial stylist for a magazine, how to keep an eye on opportunities and be at service of others, how to shift your career path in the fashion tech, what recruiters are looking for in a candidate, and the secret to adapt to any new position. And with no further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Ikerne MESTRE. Psst, if you enjoyed this episode and want to support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. This is the most efficient way to help us grow and entice people to listen to the show. Don't be shy, hit those 5 stars and show us some love in the comment section. Hi, Ikerne.
Hi,
How are
Lucas.
you?
Fine, and you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to have you.
And I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
So I'm really glad to have you. And I wanted to talk to you because your profile is so rich because you work and live in Mexico, but you did some part of your studies here in France. That's where we met. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you started working more for magazine in terms of styling. I think you write a little bit as well. But now today you work in tech. So a lot of different changes, and that's why I wanted to kind of talk to you and understand a little bit more about your journey. But before that, I would like to kind of go back a little bit and tell me about like when did you decide that you wanted to kind of work in fashion, and what was kind of your earliest memory about fashion and art and creativity in general?
Well, I remember I wanted to work in fashion for as long as I can remember, honestly, since I was a little girl. I've always loved to read and watch documentaries about fashion, about the designers, biographies, etc. Um, my last year, I also liked acting. So my last high school year, I was deciding, but at last I decided it was gonna be fashion. Here in Mexico, it's hard to study fashion because the options are quite limited. You can study to be a designer, a fashion designer, or a textile designer, but other careers related to fashion were non-existent at that time. I remember I was looking and schools were or really small or just starting, so it wasn't like really good options. At last, I found the school that it's the oldest school to have the career in fashion, and they were opening the career in fashion, but it was specialized in marketing and publishing. So no, advertising, sorry. So I decided that was the greatest option because I knew I wanted to study fashion and be in the fashion industry, but from the start I knew I didn't want it to be a fashion designer. So that was my choice. I studied there and I went to do my specialization in Paris also. It was a few months in a school in Paris. There I did a very, very short internship during the haute couture week, helping backstage and as a dresser and as a PR assistant. And I remember being there and saying, I'm not coming back to Paris. I don't like it here. No. But then I came back and I was like, I started seeing that really Paris it came to be like the best option to continue my studies. So I ended up returning to Paris now from my master's degree. And well, I just came back a few months ago to Mexico because I have a remote internship.
Okay, so quite a journey. And coming back to what you were saying about being an actress, well, what does it mean for you? When did you decided that you liked acting? It was something that you were when you were a kid. What does it represent for you?
I think I've always been really creative and love creating stuff and being on stage and being with people. I remember I really enjoyed theater specifically. So it was all about the costumes and about getting on stage was the thing that I liked the most. But at the end, I decided that the actor's life wasn't something that I really wanted. So it was something that I had in my head, like really glamorized. But on the day-to-day basis, it wasn't something that went with the lifestyle that I wanted to have. And honestly, it was like really it was really easy for me to decide, no, it's fashion. It's honestly fashion because I remember that in high school and all the way through, yeah, I always was reading about fashion and was all everything that I watched on the TV, that I saw on Facebook, on Instagram, on everything was related to fashion. I was always consuming fashion, so it was very obvious for me.
What was your kind of source of inspiration at that time? You say on TV or in magazine. What did you read? What did you watch?
I loved reading biographies, designers' biographies. And I remember there was this blog. It was really stupid, but it was called Perez Hilton. He's an American guy that had and then he had another blog but that was just focused on fashion. And I just loved going through there, just seeing the images of people dressing in the red carpet. Like I just saw that. And then Instagram. I started following people, and it was really interesting because it wasn't just about celebrities. In this case, you can follow these new influencers that were up and coming, but you can also follow some editors, some designers. So it was really interesting to get into their lives and see how, like more their personal aesthetic and what they were seeing and what they were experiencing day by day.
Okay, so that's really cool. And how all that exploration kind of make you want to work in fashion? What was kind of the elements that make you said, okay, I want to be in that universe? And did you already had an idea of what you wanted to do before you started
To be
studying?
completely honest, I think as well as acting, I also had glamorized this idea about working on fashion. Like my references were Sex and the City and all of these movies and chick flicks and series of women working in New York in magazines or on these super glamorous companies. And yeah, I had this image and it was really like abstract. I didn't know, I just knew I wanted to work in fashion, but I didn't knew like where specifically. I think my bachelor's didn't gave me like a real scope of real opportunities. Also here in Mexico, to be completely honest, is really limited compared to Paris. There aren't, in Paris you have a wide range of working options and different job roles. Here in Mexico is like 5% of what you have in Paris. So I knew my options were limited, and I also had this dream of what I saw in movies and what I read and everything of working in magazines. I in high school I started with a blog, a personal fashion blog, in which I took photos of my outfits and wrote. And I've always enjoyed writing. I remember my parents always told me that you write really beautiful when I gave them letters or whatever. So I was like, yeah, that would be something that I would love. And in my bachelor's, I started like looking for a job and to do my internship there, and I started working in magazines. And yes, working in magazines, it can be a bit like you see in movies. Like it's very glamorous, it's really fun, it's really dynamic. But I also like at the end I wanted to do something more, to be more on the business side. So that's where I was on that stage when I arrived to Paris.
Okay. And in the magazines, can you tell us what type of magazines and what did you do
Yeah,
over
I
there?
started working in a magazine called Fahrenheit magazine. It's it's about art. So there I was in the PR department. The team was really small and it was about art, but obviously like the advertisers and everything were luxury brands. So I remember we did a cover story with Chanel. It was like an illustration. What I did there, basically, I was there around 1 year. We did a really big event in one of the biggest museums here in Mexico called the Munal. It was the dual year between Germany and Mexico. So we brought the exhibition of an artist called Otto Dix. And I remember because the team was really small, and my boss like really, because I remember I just came to that magazine and I was like, I want to work. You don't have to pay me. You don't have to sign me everything. I just want to work. And he was like, really? And I was like, yes, please. So he like really enjoyed having me there, and he was like really surprised that I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted to work there. And when the event came, like he already had some trust in me, and he was like, "You're gonna take charge of this. The museum is in the city center, and the offices were really far, and my school was a bit nearer to the city center. So he was like, you're gonna go there and you're gonna be in charge of this because I cannot go to the city center all day. So you're gonna be in charge of this." And at first I was really scared. I remember like telling my friends, like, I don't know if I'm gonna like do it, because it's a huge event in a museum. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about bringing the people in the catering and how to take care of the artwork. Like, I have no idea about anything. But at the end, my boss was like, do it. The event came out fine. But I wanted more. I wanted to be more focused on fashion. And so eventually the magazine wasn't doing very well. It wasn't gonna expand. So I was like, okay, I'm out of this. And I started looking for another job, and I came to L'Officiel. It was a publishing house that had L'Officiel, and I remember I also came with the with the boss, and I told him the same thing, like, I just want to work. Please, you don't have to pay me, you don't have to do anything, I just want to work here. And he was like, okay, but L'Officiel is full right now. I'm gonna put you in the commercial area of all of the magazines. And I was like, okay. So I started there, and I started helping like the commercial manager. And basically my job was to attract new advertisers to all of the magazines and to do a lot of PR to get for the magazines, and to attract talent, a lot of events, planning events in-house, but also attend a lot of events. And I really liked it, and I think I learned a lot, but still I was with this goal that I want to be in the fashion area of the fashion magazine, writing about fashion and styling, and I wanted to be doing that specifically. So I remember like every 3 months or so, I came to the office boss and, is it open yet? Is it open yet? Can I move areas? And eventually he said like, no, it's not open. It's a really small team, but you can help them. If you want to stay in the commercial area, but you want to be in the editorial area too, it's okay. You just have to talk to them if they will let you. So I went with the editor-in-chief of L'Officiel, and I said like, hi, I'm Ikerne. I've been working here for a few months. I would like to help you out writing stories, and yes, and she said yes, and I started writing about art. So about art and books. I remember it wasn't like monthly they gave me like this story they had about a book. So I remember I took the book home, I read it, and it was normally like art books, and that was my job. And I also helped them like with styling, and you have to go there to the Gucci showroom and get me these pieces. And I remember I was like so happy. And then it's the time when I went to Paris. So I finished my bachelor and I went to Paris for my specialization. And I came back, and the boss that was there, it was a boss not for L'Officiel, but for another magazine that was in the same publishing house. It was a men's magazine. And he was really like, we got along well, and he really liked the way I worked. He was like really impressed with how dynamic I was, and Esquire Magazine called him to be the editorial director. So he said like, I'm going to Esquire. Do you want to come with me when you come back from Paris? And I was like, yes. So I came back to Paris, and I had my first job, like my first official full-time job out of school, with no school or anything. And I started as a fashion coordinator at Esquire. So I was there like 3 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Such a journey. Amazing. That's great. But before we continue on the journey, I just want to double click on few things that you said. Can you explain to us a little bit what is it to be in a magazine in PR? What is the difference between commercial and editorial? What does it mean? What are the difference in terms of position and
Commercial,
missions?
it's all about money. So your job is basically to get the advertisers and to get them to pay the most amount they can for space in the magazine. You also, it's sometimes this fight between the editorial and the commercial area, because sometimes the editorial team is more creative, or they want to do things with a lot of brands and have, like, I remember when I was in the editorial area, like I really wanted to get small designers in the magazine and to give space to local designers, to Mexican designers. But the truth was that Mexican and small designers couldn't pay. So it was this fight that I had to include the brands that were paying. So commercial area basically is in charge of including these brands and making sure that the editorial team, yes, they have some freedom to say so, but you also have to prioritize brands that advertise in the magazine just because of business. So it's these two parts of like advertising, like advertising, and also like these like more editorial notes that maybe you don't see it as an advertising, but it actually is paid. And yes.
So just to understand, so when we open a magazine, we see like a full page ads, and then we see shooting with clothing. What is the commercial part that does? They are on the full page, or they are on the actual clothes that are shot during the more editorial, more
What
creative
happens,
parts?
to give you an example, obviously there are, like some stories or some shootings that you do that are totally creative and that nothing has to do with the commercial aspect, but most of them are, and more nowadays that it's nothing new that the publishing industry and the magazine industry is in crisis right now. So money is something very important. So for example, we sell one-page advertising to whatever brand, whatever we say, okay, you pay for this, and we will also give you some space in a shooting we're doing. So that is the job of the commercial area, to do it more, like to get them into to advertise, and sometimes we do like packages and try to make the brands happy so that they keep choosing this magazine to advertise.
Okay. And what about when you are in the editorial? So you kind of take what the commercial part has negotiated, the type of brands, and then you have to actually make the magazine taking those negotiation
Yes,
in
so you
consideration.
basically have some things you have to do. Like for example, this month we are having whatever brand in the cover story. No matter what the celebrity is, I don't care, we have to have this brand. So the editorial team has to do all this strategy to think, okay, so if Rolex paid for the front cover, who is what celebrity or what people can we include in Rolex that isn't working with another watch brand? So you have to be strategic in that part and see who do you want to come. Or sometimes it's the other way around. You have the talent and you see, okay, this talent is the ambassador for Ferrari, Red Bull, and this watch brand, this fashion brand. Okay, so the commercial area goes to all of these brands and tries to sell the cover story. And the editorial team on the other side is working more on the creative side. How is going to look the shooting? How is going to, what are you going to talk about? What is this person doing that you are going to talk about with him in the interview, etc., etc. And it's basically like, it's a lot of, also I worked in this group of magazines that they have magazines in Esquire has Esquires in all around the world. So you also get in this like software thingy you have that you can go and buy articles from other Esquires in other countries. So I got on this software, and because there is like a percentage of articles in the magazine that have to be like in-house made, like I had to do the shooting and I had to write them, but there is also a percentage that you have to get from the other Esquires, like it's a rule from the publishing house. So the job is also to see like all of the Esquires around the world and see, oh, okay, I like this, and you contact them and see if they can sell it to you, etc., etc. Yes.
Okay, look super diverse in terms of role. What would you say? What have you learned from the commercial part, and what have you learned in the editorial part?
I think it's interesting to have both parts. Like sometimes I remember that sometimes the commercial area was, to give you an example, Esquire was a really luxury magazine and it men. And sometimes they told us like, okay, you have to publish this milk brand. And we were like, what? Like, how on earth do you want us to get this milk brand to look good on a magazine? And I remember that some editors like got really mad, and I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this milk brand. I'm a fashion editor. I'm not doing things with milk. But no, it's to understand that it's a business. You have to sell. And if it's it was COVID, so it was really hard. Like I remember there was like 3 Esquires that we didn't have one advertiser, not one. Like we had blank pages on the magazine. Like it printed out with blank pages. So it's this thing to, okay, maybe it's not ideal to have a milk brand, but how are you gonna do it in the most creative and sophisticated way you can? Because you also have to understand that it's a business and you have to sell. And when you understand both parts, like the commercial team has quotas that they have to meet. You understand that and what I understand is that all of business and all of the jobs you had, it's relationships with people, with real people. So the best way, like to make it work, is to have a good relationship with other part of the team and make them understand, like, okay, you give me the milk brand, but please get me. So it's all about relationships. If you have a good relationships, it's sometimes better just to negotiate and be like, okay, but please get me this brand. I really want to work with them, and to start working as a team instead of this war that sometimes it gets to that point that you have to do that, and the editorial team is like, no, we are just fashion and aesthetic and it has to look nice. So no, it has to be like both ways, and to help the commercial team, but also the commercial team, they can help us if there is this good communication and good and good relationship.
Yeah, that's great what you're saying about like it's what I call understanding the language of the other business or the other position, and really understand how they work, what are their needs, what are their missions, and trying to create everything that what you need towards their need as well, and try to create something like beneficial for both team. And that's what create like the the team spirit. And as you say, I give you this, you give me that, and the next time, we anticipate better different things. And it is a lot in our industry. There is a lot of a moment when it's not so much about the mission,
Exactly.
it's about the relationship and the people. So that's a great one. Something I wanted to go back a little bit that really surprised me when you were saying is like your eagerness to go work and go talk to people and say, okay, I want to work with you. I don't care if you pay me. Where that kind of spirit come from?
I think it's just my personality. Like I'm a really dynamic person, and I've always been like really proactive. Like if you tell me, please send me an email, I will send it in the next 5 minutes. Like I don't like to wait. And I remember my dad always telling me, like, it's better to start working sooner, because the sooner you start getting experience, well, it's accumulative, and also you have experience, and you can I remember he telling me, like, it's important that you get to know where do you really want your career to go, and where do you want to work, and to start getting into into the professional like to get this professional scope of how things work. and he told me it's the best school. To work is the best school. More than classes and more than everything, you will learn everything you need to know by working. And so yeah, I had this on my mind since I started, and I knew I wanted to get experience sooner, and to be able to see what were my options out there. So when school ended, I knew what I wanted to do. It didn't work out totally like that, but I think it did help me to have experience sooner, and to get, like, I remember I finished school and I had a job. Some of my other classmates, like 1 year, and they didn't have a job because they didn't have experience. And that was like, and it's complicated because not all of students want to work or can work, so and companies nowadays want you to have experience, but they don't understand that there are people getting out of college without experience. So here in Mexico, I really saw how they struggled to get their first job. And for me, it wasn't that hard because I already had some jobs that didn't pay me, but like I got the experience and the CV that I wanted to get that job.
And what would you say are the advice for somebody like starting in a college, wanting to work in fashion? Maybe they don't have any experience. What advice would you give them, maybe even to convince or even to contact people who are in the industry? What would you give them as an advice?
I think to be humble, it's really important. You have to understand that you don't have any experience. You won't be available all the time because your priority is to finish school in that time. So if you have this opportunity to work in a company that will take you, if they pay you or don't pay you, I don't care. It's an opportunity that they are giving you. Last week I was just doing these interviews for an intern that I will hire for like for me. And I remember I was in first approaches with all of these people and these students, and I think they see me young, and they don't, sometimes I was like, hey, I'm not your friend. Like, this is work. You have to be professional and talk to me like in a professional manner. They were like using slang and using that word. And I was like, no, okay, this person is not. Or also like people, like their first, I got interviews, like their first question was, how much are you gonna pay me? And when I asked them, what do you think about the company? Well, I didn't understand very well what you do, but I didn't have a lot of time to do research. And I was like, okay, so you're really interested in how much I'm gonna pay you, but you have no idea what you're gonna do or what the company does. Like, for me, those are red flags. You have to really, be humble and say, okay, I'm a student. I want an opportunity. I want to start working. Maybe they're not gonna pay me a lot. Maybe they're not gonna pay me, but it's gonna be like the first little step that I'm gonna have to have experience in my CV, and to later on have another job, or to stay in that company that later on, if I do a good job, they will want to hire me. So I think it's all about attitude, like to have a good attitude and to be open, and to have a good attitude and to want to really work.
It's a great advice, and thanks for sharing your experience as a recruiter now for your own interns. And it's great what you're saying about the attitude. I think a lot of it goes back to that idea of being humble, wanting to learn and work hard, as you were saying, not knowing what you're going to be in terms of mission, but figure out on the way. But most and foremost, it's arrive prepared to any type
Yes.
of interview. Because as you said, the first question that we ask is, okay, tell us about yourself, basically, which means what can you bring to the company, and why do you want to work here? And if we don't have any, let's say, any good attitude, or at least the beginning of a professional answer, even though people are students at that time, as you said, everything become a red flag. Um, that's why one of the advice I always give, it's about like being on the other side and imagine yourself as a recruiter. And most of the time, basically, as when you are doing an interview, the idea is to reassure at the end the recruiter. It's reassure that, okay, maybe I don't know everything, but I have the attitude and the eagerness to work. Uh, maybe I don't know all of it about, I don't understand everything about the company, but I understand enough, and that shows that I've done my homeworks and I understand the, let's say, the core business. And sometimes that's it. That's all we need to understand. Because you see, the red flags arrive
Yes.
super
And
fast.
also, like you said it, no, to do research. Like nobody knows how to do your curriculum, how like the basic rules of how you should have your CV. But honestly, all the information, it's out there. You just have to Google it, to listen to a podcast. Like, it's really simple to know the basic rules of how to do a good interview, a good CV. For example, I received a CV that was 5 pages. 5 pages from a girl that was studying, and this was gonna be her first job. And it was like this huge letters, and I was like, what is this? And I mean, we're not born learning how to do a CV, but if you Google it, just one Google, and you will find out that for a CV, one pager. If you're a student, one page. And for me, it was that, like, this girl doesn't have the interest of just looking in the internet and saying, how should my CV looks? So it was like, okay, it's okay if you don't know, but have the interest in doing research, in like getting to know. It's okay if you don't know, but ask. Like, it's okay to raise your hand and saying, I don't know, Google, please help me, that, please help me, you, please, whatever, but to get help. I think to ask also for advice, to ask people, to ask questions is really important. I also think that's a very good advice. It's okay to not know, but ask. Don't remain yourself with not knowing.
It's a great one. That's why at the end, just go to
Yes.
Canva, have a
Yes,
template already made,
exactly.
and that's already like you're already 90% right. Thank you for sharing all of that. Those are great great advice. And continuing on the editorial part, what did you like about the job of editorial? Like you said, you went to Gucci, find the product. What was those kind of experience, and how did you choose? What was the criteria to choose some product, not other product? How does it work?
About being an editorial, I really like that it was a very dynamic, and that not on the level that you see in Sex and the City, but it is a very glamorous job. Like, I remember that I went on trips, that I went to really very cool events. Like, you have experiences that you won't and have anywhere else, because yeah, like you have a lot of good experiences. It's very dynamic all of the time. It's changing, and it's very fast, because you are okay, the magazine goes out today, but we have like 3 weeks to finish the next issue. So it's really a really fast-paced industry. How you choose the clothes, for example, for shootings, well, it's something like, for example, you have to know the size and the fit of the person you're gonna dress. Also, the brands have their rules to say, for example, if you're doing the shooting for August and September, maybe they have clothes that they can only lend to you if it's for the August magazine, but if it's September, it's too late. So you also have to negotiate with the PR, with the showroom person, and to see what's available for them in terms of commercial terms for them. So the size, I would say, if it's available, if it goes with your theme overall, with like the mood board you did for that shooting, and that it's okay with the brand. There are some brands that their rule, for example, it's we can only lend you things if you're gonna go for a full look of our brand. If you're gonna have other brands in that same look, sorry, you can't have us. For example, that's another rule. They were also like runway looks that said, this look, you have to publish it like this, like the whole entire look, shoes, accessories. You cannot, so it limited a bit the creativity because you cannot like, put things extra or whatever, but you have to work with those rules and to see, okay, maybe this brand is very strict and they only let you use full looks and how they have them, but this other brand doesn't care, so you can have a mix in that look and do a balance. And also talk to the commercial area and see, okay, which brands are we interested on having on the good terms, or like having a good relationship with. Okay, maybe like get that brand on the shooting so that next month they will want to advertise with us. So you also have to think on those terms. Yes.
Yeah, makes sense. Super interesting what you say about like how brands have rules, how you cannot mix everything. We don't think sometimes about the calendar of okay, this is too late for
In
them
stores,
because it's not going to be in the
exactly.
in the store, or and thing like that. So that's a great one. And I just wanted to continue in your journey. And why did you decide to go to Paris after that first experience, and what did you kind of learn
I
over
honestly
there?
felt very stuck. Like I saw the company and I knew like my limit was there. Like I could see very clearly where my limit in terms of growth was gonna be if I continue to work on magazines. I also knew that it was really evident the crisis and how bad magazines are doing nowadays. So I had this feeling about like being in the sinking ship, and I was like, I don't want to be in the sinking ship this early on in my career. Um, it's a yes, it's a really nice industry, but I wanted to grow more, and I saw more area of opportunity in other careers or other areas. For example, technology. I knew I didn't knew anything about business, for example. I knew some things about how the industry worked because of school, because of what I read, because of the magazine, but I was very limited on that. And I felt that if I wanted to grow and also make more money, I had to expand. I was really scared, but because I always had this feeling that I was really bad with numbers and math. So I was like, no, 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 I only know how to make shootings and to write. That's the only thing I know how to do. But I decided to break those things and to go out and learn new things. I remember that for some time I was looking for other jobs, but it was really hard for me to get another, like they offered me other jobs in other magazines. And I was like, no, I want to go out of this area. So for me, the best option and the option that I wanted was to make that like continue studying to do a master's that maybe would expand my options and would get me like automatically out of my comfort zone. I knew I had to to leave my work, that I didn't at the end, but I thought at first that I would have to leave my work, and it would eventually push me to get out and look for another job, which it did.
It's really interesting the way you think it. That's something I always notice in you, is like how you always have a 1 or 2 step ahead in the way you think. That you see, you analyze that, okay, I might be in a thinking chip here. What can I do? And it's something that even though we are in a fast-paced environment or industry, it's always good to always keep the moments and have the eyes open and say, okay, where I am, where I am going. As you said, like, okay, I already see the limits where I can go. So I think that's an excellent skill that you have, and that's why I wanted to highlight it, because it's not everybody who does that. Sometimes you just have your job and you enjoy it, the parties, the fun, the clothes, and the rhythm, but you don't see that you are going in the direction that maybe is not the right for you. So that's a great point. And what did you learn at in your masters, and how does that change kind of your trajectory?
I remember that what I really highlighted about my school is that there was this focus on two things that were out of my scope. Like, I knew I wanted to get into the business, but something very abstract, and I thought it was gonna be something related to numbers, and that was it. And when I came to school, there was this highlight about sustainability and technology. Like, I perceived these two things as the biggest areas of opportunities in the fashion industry right now, and where new things were going on, where brands were really focusing in developing and growing. So I knew that I wanted to redirect my career towards one or both areas. Just, I didn't knew anything about them. I didn't knew anything about sustainability, or like, I knew the basic stuff, but or technology. Like, for me, the metaverse and artificial intelligence was something like really new. I knew it existed. I knew it was out there, but I didn't see it as a possibility to work in one of those things, because I thought, like, I don't know anything about that. Like, how I'm gonna work there? But it was something that was really, like, it really motivated me, and it really captured my attention. So I started looking. I knew I also was attracted to works that were remote, and they were like the technology jobs were like the most with the remote options. So I said, like, okay, this is good about technology. It can give you the chance to work remotely, but I also have to learn new skills and learn the language and learn the terms, etc. And because of life, I get to meet this woman who is launching a fashion tech company, and that is also willing to show me and to teach me new things. So it was a perfect opportunity to stay in fashion, something that I like, something that I do know, but also getting these two other areas that were really new for me: sustainability and technology.
Okay. And so, what do you do today in terms of mixing those two worlds?
Okay, so now I work in a fashion tech company that develops algorithm, artificial intelligence, and modules to help facilitate e-commerce. As their first project, they launched this e-commerce, this marketplace. This marketplace where we sell only like luxury independent brands that work responsibly. So, for example, I started to learn the difference between a brand that was totally sustainable and a brand that was just responsible. To be a sustainable brand, you have to meet certain criteria that some brands are on the journey to get there, but are not there yet. So I had to learn all of these specifications, how do you classify a brand that is ethical, that is sustainable, that it's etc., etc. And in terms of technology, this product and this like this system and the algorithms and the APIs that we have to facilitate the e-commerce is something that I have to sell to brands and to get the people to get the company. So it's something that I had to understand. to understand and to really learn about what my boss was talking about and what the problem is with the technical team. It's a really small team, so I'm really in contact with everyone. So I had to understand and to get to know if maybe I'm not in the technical team and I don't do the software myself, but I have to understand the software and what they are talking about. So it is a very good first approach to that completely new language and completely new world that I perceived as out of my league.
Yeah, it's super interesting, especially as you said that you didn't know anything about it. And what are the skills that you acquire in your previous job that you were able kind of to transfer to this new kind of position?
I think I would get it back to the attitude. Like, honestly, there were things that I didn't know how to do. Like, there was no way I knew, even school didn't taught me the things, but it's about attitude. Okay, I don't know it, please, I want to learn. And to be open to learn and to be open to dedicate some time to and to let people explain things to you and also do research yourself. Like if my boss, I remember her asking me to do some research about how money is raised here in Mexico and business angels and things like that. When she met, like, I know a lot of people know what business angels are, but I have no idea. And I had no idea how you raise money, how that world, all of the raising money for startup works, etc. So I remember I was weeks researching and trying to understand how, if you want to raise money for a new company, how does it work and what people do you have to look for, and what companies do you have to look for, and what does your company have to be able to ask for it, etc., etc. So I think it's about attitude. Okay, maybe there are skills, maybe there are things that you won't know, but if you have the disposition to learn them, that's all it matters. Maybe some skills, I would say, I will get it back to people. Like if you learn to connect with people and to understand that you can be talking to, like, we are all people here working. So even if you talk to the PR assistant, to the software manager, to the IT, whatever, you are always talking to a person. So if you really understand that and learn to do relationships with people, it's going to be easier for you and for them to understand you and to have a better communication. So I think having good relationships with people, having a good communication, and understanding that we are all people and we all have bad days and we have different ways of communicating and asking for things and ways of just being, you can work more easily.
Yeah, it's a great one. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings passionate in the industry, wanting to do a good job, and that's
yes,
that's it. It's at the heart of it. That's what it is. And what surprised you the most working in tech, mixing fashion? What was kind of the thing that is surprising you the most compared maybe to what you have done in the past?
I didn't have the slightest idea how complicated and how sophisticated like a web page can be. And I say web page because for me, I just went to whatever web page, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, Perez Hilton, or whatever, and I saw the same thing. But when you understand all the technology and the software and like the bases they have different for different things, like a marketplace is going to be very different from a blog, and all the small details that you don't see, it's really, yeah, like it really shocked me. Like I really thought that all, like, I went to Zara.com and Gucci.com and whatever, and I think like, okay, Shopify, this is a Shopify, and no, it's maybe there are some brands that use Shopify, but there are some others that are really complicated, and to get to that point, if you want to do a completely like new page, is really complicated, and for it to work and hosting the service and all of that, it's really it's really sophisticated, and I didn't understand or didn't imagine how complicated and how interesting that would be. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, that's a great one. It's true. It's such a unique world, the tech part of it, and as you say, as your job, even though you're not in it, it's really important to have like basic knowledge and to start being a little bit curious about it, because that's where the world is going, and it's part of like that. That language, the language of technology, is infused in so many aspects of our industry. And I agree. Once you start understanding at least how things work or interconnect, um, there is a world of new opportunities also that arise to understand what kind of business, how the business is going to be, what kind of position. There's so many jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago when I left, I finished my studies, that now exist, and I don't imagine how many other new jobs are going to even appear in the next 10 years. So we arrive kind of at the conclusion. Now that you already know more about technology, sustainability, again, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that want to work in fashion, that maybe is a little bit interesting in tech? What would you give them in terms of advice?
I will say to always be on the look for these new areas of opportunities. Maybe, like on my case, maybe I had this dream of working in magazines, but you have to be observant on what is going on in the world. Okay, maybe magazines are dying, fact. Let's move on and see what areas of opportunities are now, what is trending, what people are doing, what areas of business are growing. And to, yes, maybe you love magazines, but you have to actualize and have to move on and see, okay, if I love magazines, maybe I'm gonna read them more, but maybe my area of opportunity or where I have more growth is going to be technology. Okay, let's do some research. What skills do I need? Because now I see some technology companies, some fashion tech companies and I see these really cool new jobs. And when I see the requirements for that job, it's impressive to see, like, I don't even understand what this word means, So I think to be curious and to see what is going on, what does the industry is gonna look like in 10 years, and to start working on acquiring those skills, it would be really good for people that want to work in fashion.
Yeah, it's a great one. I like the advice of looking at job posts and try to understand what are the skills that it's needed today, even though the position it's not maybe the right fit for you at that moment of your career, but at least understanding what kind of skills and what does it mean if there are technical skills or technical words, because like that you have a step ahead compared to maybe if you're still a student or even working, you have a step ahead compared to other people. Because as you were saying, people are working, some people are studying, but they don't have that step ahead as we talked about earlier. So I think it's a great advice to look at it. It's a good one. So Ikerne, I know in terms of time, we are arriving at the end. My last question would be like, what about now? What kind of, what do you see yourself in the coming months, years? What do you imagine you're gonna explore more into the fashion tech, more in the sustainability?
I think that
what's the plan for you?
I would like to focus more on sustainability and learn more about the industry, what sustainability means, what fashion companies are doing, but companies in general are doing to be more sustainable. I think that that's an area that really interests me, and that it's really important for me personally, and I see that it's a thing that we all have to get in that wagon, because it's a crisis that we are all living in. So I think that would be like the area I would like to get more into.
It's a really important one, and I agree. We all have to kind of do our homework and continue to understand more what does it mean for the industry, because at the end, those are the one in power to really make some changes and some impact. And kind of last question, you were saying that you're in the platform you are working on, you see like new luxury brands that are sometimes most responsible, so sometimes sustainable. Do you have any kind of brand that you notice that you personally, for example, like, or do you didn't know before that are doing interesting things on that topic?
Good question. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm. There's this brand that I really like, that is called Hua Lingerie. It's a Mexican brand, and they just got out a collection. Like, it's nothing really fancy or really innovative, but they got out a collection with, in Mexico we call them retazos, basically like dead stock pieces of fabric from previous collections. But what I like about this project of them is that they managed to do a really aesthetic collection, but they, with their reason, because it's a really small brand, they wouldn't have the money to do a really technology fabric that it's made out of stars that don't contaminate. No, they don't have the money to do that fancy and super sophisticated stuff, but with their possibilities and what they already had, they managed to do a sustainable and a more ethical collection. So I think that is what I admire in brands, that you don't have to get really sophisticated and really complicated to find better ways to work. So I think that brands that are doing small changes, I really value them. Mm.
Yeah, that's an excellent example, and
Yes.
please send us
Sure.
the link of the brand like that. We can put it in the show notes, and because it is something really interesting that I've seen in the last 10 years. It's brands like do sustainable collection, or like pop-ups or things like that. And for a long time, it was hard to find the aesthetic part of it. It was just like, okay, this is a nice fabric or another way to produce, but the aesthetic, the magic, let's say, of the fashion was not there. And today, we see more and more how that constraint of sustainability is transformed into real creativity and aesthetic. And I think that's one of the big improvements in our industry. It's about the design, how designers think about those constraints and use that to elevate the clothes and the collection. And the sustainability part is it's woven inside the aesthetic part, and is not on top of it like it used to be before. So that's why we see all those new, let's say, younger brands and smaller brands having like really nice points of view aesthetically, and they're also sustainable. So thank you for sharing that one, and we're gonna look at it. Ikerne, thank you again for your time. It was a great conversation and a lot of good advice. Anything that you want to add before we wrapped up? Anything that you want to say to our audience?
Just thank you. Thank you
before
for having me, and
we
thank you
finish?
for connecting with me. Also, thank you for all of your coaching sessions and your advice that you gave me. Some things that I said were very influenced by your coaching sessions. I remember this phrase that you told me about planning your moves like chess moves. That really stuck with me, and I appreciate what you're doing and how you are helping students and other people like me that want to take their career further. I really appreciate and admire your work. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ikerne, and thanks for the kind words. Yeah,
Yeah.
the chess mindset, as I always say it. Yeah, always have one or two step ahead, and you illustrated that very well. So thank you again for your time, and I wish you the best in the new year coming, and let's stay in touch and see where you end up
Thank you,
going.
Lucas.
Do you see now why the chess mindset is a great framework to use? But before I give you the 3 tips, let's review what we have learned from this conversation with Ikerne. 1. The reality of working in editorial styling is not always as glamorous as it used to. Today, besides a great sense of style and trends, you need to acquire a commercial point of view in order to balance creativity with revenues. Also, work on building trust within your team and the other departments. Remember that without them, you won't be able to do your job properly. Number 2, the number 1 rule when applying to a position is to avoid prepare. Do your homework about the company, understand what are the missions, and always keep a professional posture when communicating. It might seem a no-brainer to some of you, but I'm telling you, I hear the complaints all the time from my peers. Number 3, shifting to fashion tech, it's a process. So the third thing is to learn the language, the acronyms, the vocabulary, the way things are done, how the engineer thinks and process tasks. You might have some great knowledge about fashion, but you will need to have a great sense of humility to thrive in the fashion tech. So be patient and keep learning. So what about the chess mindset? Let me explain. When a chess player makes a move, they always have in mind several possible combinations planned in advance. Don't think one step at a time, which allow them to imagine and create several possible scenarios starting from this particular move, and also several possible outcomes from this starting position. Do you see where I'm going with this? Why don't we apply the same way of thinking to our careers? Why should we only think our career in a linear way? And the best part is that you can apply this chess mindset to any aspect of your life. So here are a few tips that you can start implementing today. 1. Long-term return on investment. Whenever you are going to move, try to look beyond the obvious advantage. Look further. 2. Fear setting. Imagine if the next move doesn't work, how can you leverage the new skill and experience that you have acquired? Look at Tim Ferriss's TED Talk on the topic. 3. Future scenarios. Once you make your next move, what new roles do you believe could open in front of you? How can you start preparing yourself today to take them tomorrow? Simple, right? It has been such a simple and fundamental concept that I teach to all my students and clients. If you are still hearing this, thank you so much for tuning in. I know how much your time is valuable. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. This is the most efficient way to help us grow and entice the people to listen to the show. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. In the next episode, we will deep dive in the role of retail merchandiser with Victoria Carpentino, currently the junior merchandiser of women ready-to-wear at Saint Laurent. Until next time, I wish you a wonderful day.